Hi, folks, and welcome back to MMA Talking Heads, second episode of the MMA Journalist Chat Show brought to you by Loretta Hunt. Wave, Loretta.
Hi. Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
and Jason Probst. And we want to thank everybody for their response to our first episode, especially media outlets.
Phenomenal response, right?
Right. I mean, we said let's just do a video, and then we get like a
Fun.
thousand hits on YouTube.
Or almost like a couple thousand. I thank you so much for all the emails people sent, with all this positive notes and support. And we're definitely listening. And, we want people to send in questions to us and ideas and comments and ideas for things we should talk about. But regardless, Jason and I are just going to keep talking about MMA like real journalists.
All right, yeah, and we also specifically wanted to thank Jeff Wagenheim at Sports Illustrated, Cage Potato, Fight Opinion, BloodElbow.com for covering some of the things we talked about in order to stimulate the dialogue. So, Loretta, we move on to the topic of Episode 2, The Ultimate Fighter.
Episode 3.
Episode 3, right. Episode 3.
3 was last night.
That's right. So, The Ultimate Fighter, then their 13th season now. Show started off in 2005 as a huge hit and a brilliantly played marketing vehicle for the UFC. Now that we're 13 seasons in, there have been some reports of maybe lower ratings or whatever and things like that. We wanted to talk about some ideas for that reality show that's been the vehicle for the UFC to produce so many stars. So let's talk a little bit about the ratings from
Yeah.
this season. What do you got for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I did a little research, and I want to thank Bloody Elbow because they actually put out all the ratings for the first episode of all 13 seasons. So this season got a 1.2, I'm told, which I'm told translated into 1.2 million people. I hope I don't have that wrong, and if I do, someone let me know, and I will correct that on our next Talking Heads. I'm sorry. Actually, it was a 1.
It's 1.0 share, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was 1.5 million people, correct, for the first episode. And then the next week, they lost 300,000 viewers. They went to a 1.2 million. I'm not sure what that share was on that. So having looked at the other seasons and their shares, previously the lowest had been season 8 that got a 1.2. So obviously this season with a 1.0, I believe we said, it got a lower share. Season 10 obviously was the highest with a 2.9 share. When that was the Kimbo Slice season, right?
Love that
And
season.
Rampage Jackson versus Rashad Evans, and that was a season I really enjoyed because I felt the fighters. I felt like I got a really good idea of who all these fighters were.
Right.
And we can talk about that going into this next season now. But obviously, losing 300,000 people between the first and second week must be disappointing for Spike. Let's be honest here. I'm sure Dana White paid some extra cheddar to get Brock Lesnar to come and do this show in Las
Right.
Vegas.
That's a tough get to get Brock to do that.
Yeah, that's a tough get. It was probably very expensive. I mean, and to not have great ratings, they were probably hoping for something along the Kimbo Slice lines, I have to guess. And for it to be out of the gate, the lowest season premiere of all 13 seasons, that must be super disappointing for the UFC and Spike.
Yeah,
Uh,
but let's talk about, I was thinking about that. They're on the 13th season of a reality show.
mm-hmm.
I mean, how other than like the 48 Kardashian shows that are on, which I think almost have an audience they can't lose interest in it because by definition they're like watching the Kardashians. I think it's pretty
Right.
tough to sustain the momentum. I mean, I love the comeback season. I thought that was great. Obviously, the first season it was something new and something totally out of the box. I think it's pretty impressive they've even made it this far. Now, if there's been one recurring theme with all the toughs is that they've constantly fine-tuned it to make it more interesting and watchable. But what can you really do after 13 seasons? I mean, it's tough to keep fans' attention other than these are a bunch of guys in a house, they're going to fight. Maybe there's a few. I mean, what do you do to keep that going? Because the public, I mean, is fickle.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, I agree with you. At some point, the UFC and Spike TV has to say, God, we really milked this thing as much as we could. And they're still renegotiating their contract, isn't that right? For not only Tough, but for their whole relationship. And I'm not even sure how that's going to go. There's no guarantee that UFC will stay with Spike or Spike will continue to work with the UFC like they have. So, I mean, they must be looking at this very closely at this point. I don't know. I mean, I keep thinking, gosh, this could be the end of the run. And I mean, it is getting a little monotonous. You said they fine-tuned. We went from season one and
Right.
season two where they had Willa Ford. You guys remember Willa Ford?
Yes, I remember Willa
She, you
Ford.
had her in there as a hostess, and we had obstacles
Crazy
and
challenge. Do you remember the
yeah,
sock
crazy
challenge?
challenges, the sock challenge.
That was the best challenge. Get the socks on the guy. So we're
I,
getting to
I like the one where Joe Stevenson had to wrap himself around his
the
teammate
the
as many
monkey
times as he
crawl.
could, and he just kept going forever and
Yeah, I
ever.
think he
That
did
was
that.
great.
He did that. I think it was like Mike Whitehead. He did it for like an hour, which, I mean, I thought
That
that was
was great,
amazing.
right? I mean, I know we all thought those things were kind of hokey, right?
Right.
But I don't. I have a suggestion for Tough. I started thinking about it again last night, and I've also been watching Tough Enough. Have you been catching WWE's Tough Enough?
Oh, is that the reality show about guys trying to be
To get into
wrestlers?
the WWE, and it's very
Okay.
similar. Tough Enough actually ran years ago. I watched it as a kid, a younger kid, and we can even argue that Tough took a little bit from the this WWE Tough Enough years ago, the first run of it. So now it's back. It debuted. I think it was 3.3 million people for the first
Right.
episode, which blows away, right? Double
Right.
and then some of what the UFC Tough did. And then the next week they went down to I think 2.9 and change million. So they've gone down a little bit. Their third episode was Monday night, which I watched. I didn't get the ratings, but I watched the episode last night to kind of get some ideas and think
Sure.
of ways. In a lot of ways, they do have similar things. So do you want to go into my plan for
Let's hear
Tough?
the
My
master plan.
suggestion. Now, I'm giving this to you for the first time because I want your honest reaction. You and I have talks like this all the time where I throw out ideas and
Right.
you and I are thinking of story ideas and stuff like this. So, this would be my suggestion for the next season of Tough, maybe the season after if they continue doing it or whatever.
Okay.
Okay. With WWE, what I noticed right away is there's women on the show.
Ooh,
And
I like
the
this.
women
I
and the
like
men
it.
train alongside each other. Now, we know in MMA we can't exactly do the same thing, right? So I started thinking, what about when we went back to the first couple seasons of Tough and they would do two weight classes at the same time, like welterweight and middleweight? And remember, we used to crown two champions and
Right.
then they kind of clumped it all together and now it's all one weight class. What if we did a season where we have 8 women and 8 men? Because Dana White's always complaining that there's not enough women in this sport to satisfy running divisions.
Which
Strikeforce,
in some ways could be true. You need that depth of talent.
well, that's why I'm saying let's pick 8 women out of one weight class. We don't have to make it 16 across the board, not a full season of women. Let's do it. Let's crown a women's champion and a
Right.
men's champion for the next season of Tough.
Okay. Now
And
here's a
go ahead.
do they don't live in the same house, do they?
Well, okay, we're all
That's because
adults
that's
here.
got all kinds of potential problems. I mean, if you thought
Well,
somebody peeing in your
are we looking for ratings? Come on.
right, but
Listen,
if
this
you
is
thought
my
somebody
thought.
peeing in your food was a problem, this could get way out of hand. Although I admit it's got ratings ideas, so let's keep rolling with it.
Okay,
Flesh
let's
this
work
out.
with this idea. So if we picked 8 women and 8 men, and the reason I'm saying let's go half and half is because I understand Dana White's argument that there might not be enough women in divisions, especially not what the UFC is used to at this point. They're
Right,
used to depth galore, right, with all
right,
their men. I do think we could, put together 8 women. And there's a lot of women who I think people want to see their personalities more, and they just don't have an avenue to do it. I want to find out about Liz Carmouche. That girl was
yeah.
outstanding
She
in
came
her
out of
fight.
nowhere,
Yeah,
and
it came
she's
out of
tough.
nowhere, and I want to know what's making this girl tick. I think yes, we do keep them all in the same house. I think they get to interact together in their downtime. When they train separately. So the men still train and compete against
Right,
one another. The women train and compete against one another. Maybe we have to, for timing, maybe we have to do one week it's a women's fight, one week it's the man's fight, that type
right.
of thing, and go back and forth. Or if they can figure out a way to get 2 fights into one show, they've done it before. I think they could do that. Definitely have them all live in the same house. If something organically happens between all these athletes, that's great. You know what I mean? But
Organically.